The boy's hand was cold, almost like stone, but it moved, just slightly, just enough for her to feel it against her skin. And in that moment, she knew he was still alive. No one believed there was a chance. They said it was too late. But Ellie refused to turn back, because someone was still out there. Let me take you back to where it all began. She had walked for hours through snow that kept reaching higher than her boots, dragging behind her a small sled with nothing on it but a folded blanket, her red medical kit, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't too late. They told her it was a waste of time. The wreck had gone cold. No survivors, they said. It was over. But Ellie couldn't sleep knowing there was a voice at the edge of that final radio call. Not a scream, not words, just a sound, broken and weak. She heard it. Nobody else did. Maybe they didn't want to. She did. And so she left, with only her medic pack, her search dog Charlie, and the trail of blood they found near the crash. It wasn't much, just thin lines along the snow, already half covered by wind, but it was enough to keep going. Charlie didn't bark or run ahead like he usually did. He stayed close, his head low, his steps slow. That was how she knew they were close. Ellie didn't say much to him. Just one word every so often, good. Because sometimes that's all it takes to let someone know you're still trying. The snow kept falling, soft but steady. It melted into her eyelashes and soaked through her gloves. Still, she kept going, eyes on the trail, knees sore from every slip. She had been in worse conditions. She had seen worse. But this felt different. This felt personal. She wasn't just trying to save someone. She was trying to stop something from dying inside her. Something that had already gone quiet after she lost her sister, and again when her father passed, and again when she had to leave a child behind in Afghanistan because there was only room for one on the evac chopper. This boy, whoever he was her chance to try again. Not to fix everything, but to do one thing right. Ellie saw the wreck before Charlie did. A twisted metal truck half buried under snow, its roof crushed, one of the back doors wide open like someone had crawled out. She didn't shout. She didn't rush. She dropped to her knees slowly, hands shaking more from fear than cold. The trail of blood was clearer now. It led to a small patch under a bent frame, just big enough for a child to fit. She leaned down and saw him. Curled in a ball, not moving, his arms stretched out toward the light. No coat, no gloves, just thin clothes soaked through and frozen stiff. Her stomach turned. She had seen death, but this wasn't that. Not yet. She slid closer, laid her bare hand on his wrist. First nothing, then something faint, like the last flicker of heat from a dying fire. She closed her eyes. There was a pulse. It was real. The boy was alive. She pulled him out gently, wrapped him in the emergency blanket, held him close to her chest. His lips were cracked. His skin was pale, but his chest rose and fell. That was enough. Charlie sat beside them, his eyes locked on the woods behind them, like he expected someone to come, like he knew they didn't have much time. Ellie whispered softly, "I've got you. You're safe now." The boy didn't answer. His face pressed against her jacket, small and still. She looked around. No sign of other movement. No fresh tracks. Just the three of them now. She reached for her radio, tried to call it in. Nothing. Static. Just like before. She gave up. They'd have to make it back on their own. She set up a small camp just past the wreck under an overhang. It wasn't warm, but it was cover. She boiled water from the snow, poured it into a metal cup, held it near the boy's mouth. He didn't drink, but when she touched the cup to his lips, he leaned toward it. That was enough. She gave him small sips, broke a protein bar in half, held a piece in her palm. His hand moved, slow and unsure, and took it. Charlie rested beside him, head down, eyes never leaving the tree line. That night, Ellie didn't sleep. She kept her hand on the boy's chest, counting his breaths. They were shallow, unsteady, but they were there. Around midnight, he opened his eyes. Just for a second. He didn't say anything at first. Then his lips moved. His voice came out small. "Is my mom coming?" Ellie froze. She felt something in her chest twist. She thought of lying, of saying yes, but her throat wouldn't let her. She shook her head. "I don't think so," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The boy didn't cry. He didn't ask again. He just turned his face back into her jacket and closed his eyes. In the morning, Ellie checked his pockets. One of his sleeves had something sewn into the lining. She felt it with her fingers, pulled it out slowly. A note, crumpled, damp, barely holding together. She unfolded it. For lines. "If anyone finds him, his name is Liam. Please keep him warm. I'm sorry. I love you, baby." It was signed in small, rushed handwriting. Anna Torres. Ellie knew that name. It had been on the convoy manifest. Nurse. Died on impact. No known family. Ellie folded the note, tucked it into her vest. She looked at Liam, sleeping now, face slack with exhaustion. Charlie was curled against him, body warming the boy's side. She reached out and ran her fingers gently through Liam's hair. It was soft, tangled, still warm. "I'm not going to leave you," she said. "We'll get out of this." But the storm was coming in harder now. The wind had picked up. The sky turned darker. And the radio still didn't work. She knew what that meant. They were on their own. Supplies were low. Liam needed medicine. His chest had started to rattle. She knew the sound. Pneumonia. If it got worse, he wouldn't make it. She had 2 doses of antibiotics. One she had been saving for herself. The other, she didn't hesitate. She gave it to him. She had made her choice. That night, she stayed awake beside him again. He coughed, hard, sharp, painful. She held him tighter, told him stories, soft ones, about rivers and fishing, about dogs that could dance, about her sister and how she used to sing in the rain. Liam didn't say anything, but his hand found hers and held on. She didn't know if they'd make it, but she knew she wouldn't give up. Not on him, not now. The trail of blood in the snow had led her to this moment. The mission had failed. Everyone else gave up. But Ellie stayed. She stayed. And somewhere out in the trees, something moved. Ellie hadn't felt her hands in over an hour, but she kept them wrapped around Liam anyway, using her body like a shelter. Her jacket pulled wide open so her chest could press against his back, trying to push whatever heat she had left into him. The boy had stopped coughing for now, but that didn't comfort her. Sometimes silence meant the lungs had given up. She leaned her ear down to his ribs, listening close. There. Still moving. Still shallow. But still there. She glanced at Charlie, who hadn't left their side all night. The dog had always been good with people. But this was different. He stayed closer. He hadn't touched his food. His eyes didn't blink much. He just watched. Ellie reached out and touched his fur. "Good boy," she said quietly. "I know. I'm watching too." By morning, the snow had slowed but hadn't stopped. Ellie knew if they waited too long, the cold would win. It always did. Her own shoulder had started to burn. She didn't remember hitting it, but she had. Probably during the fall near the truck. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was moving forward. The map she brought showed an old ranger post about 5 miles northeast. If it still stood, it might have shelter. Maybe a radio. Maybe heat. She didn't know. But she couldn't stay here. Not with Liam this sick. And not with the sky getting darker again. She packed slowly. Every move felt heavier. Liam was still asleep. His lips had more color now, and his fingers weren't as cold. That was something. She layered the emergency blanket inside her sled, wrapped him tight, then placed him gently inside. He didn't wake. Charlie circled once, then fell in beside them, head low, walking close. Ellie took one last look at the wreck. There was nothing left to take. No bodies to bury. Just a broken truck and a story nobody would ever hear. They walked in silence, step after step. Her boots sunk in patches of snow so deep she had to drag her legs free. The wind scraped at her face, pulling at her scarf, but she didn't stop. She kept moving, eyes locked on the white in front of her. She had stopped crying days ago, not because she didn't feel, but because there wasn't room for it. All that mattered now was the weight behind her on the sled. Every so often she turned to check. Liam hadn't moved, but his chest still rose and fell. That was enough. Hours passed. The woods thickened. The trail narrowed. And then, finally, they reached the edge of a clearing. Ellie stopped. Something was off. She scanned the trees. Nothing moved. Not even branches. Charlie stopped too. His ears lifted. His eyes sharp. He sniffed the air. Then looked straight ahead. Not fear. Not alert. Confusion. Ellie followed his line of sight. And that's when she saw it. Footprints. Not hers. Not Liam's. Not animal. Boot prints. Fresh. Going in the same direction. She crouched quickly, pulling the sled close, motioning for Charlie to stay low. Her heart picked up. Someone was here, or had just been. She looked back at the prints. Only one set. The steps were deep, heavy, uneven, like the person had been injured. She didn't know what that meant, but it wasn't good. She moved fast now, quieter, keeping to the side, following the prints just enough to stay close, but far enough not to be seen. Then she saw it. Smoke. Thin, gray, rising between the trees. She crouched again. Checked on Liam. Still asleep. Still warm, but barely. She whispered to Charlie. We need to know who's ahead. Stay close. No sound. Charlie stayed glued to her hip. They moved slowly now, 1 foot at a time, snow muffling their steps. And then, just past a cluster of rocks, she saw it. A fire. Small. Weak. And behind it, a figure. A man. Sitting with his back against a tree. A thick scarf covering most of his face, but his hands visible. One was wrapped in a dirty cloth. The other held a metal cup. He looked half asleep. Ellie studied him. No military gear. No weapon in sight. But that didn't mean anything. She took a breath and stepped out slowly. He looked up. Didn't speak. She didn't either, not at first. Then, carefully, she said, I have a child. He's sick. We need help. The man didn't move. Then finally, a voice. Low. Rough. Fire's warm. It wasn't a welcome, but it wasn't a threat. Ellie hesitated, then called over her shoulder. Charlie! Bring him. The dog moved carefully, pulling the sled forward with his leash. When the man saw Liam, his eyes changed. He looked sad. Ellie caught it. You know him? She asked, sharper now. The man nodded once. My sister was with the convoy. She tried to get him out. I told her not to. She went anyway. Ellie stepped closer. Anna? He nodded again. She was all he had, he said. Then, quieter. I'm all that's left. Ellie looked at Liam, then at the man. She wasn't sure what to believe, but she was too tired to argue. She sat down across the fire. Charlie lay between them, watching both carefully. Ellie leaned her head back, let the heat touch her face. The man poured water from his pot into an old tin, held it out. She took it without a word. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then, she asked, Why are you out here? He stared into the fire. Waiting, he said. For what? He didn't answer. And that silence scared her more than anything else had so far. Ellie didn't move. She watched the man, studied him, trying to read his face, but the scarf made it hard. His eyes were the only part she could see clearly, and they looked tired, not just from the cold, but something deeper, like he'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. She looked down at Liam. He hadn't stirred. His face was pale again, and his fingers had curled tighter under the blanket. She reached for her bag, pulled out the second heat pack, and tucked it under his side. She'd planned to save it, but there was no point now. Everything was day by day. The man spoke again. How long's he been out? 3 days, Ellie said. Since I found him. He's got pneumonia. I gave him the only dose I had left. It might not be enough. The man didn't react, just stared at the flames. You said Anna was your sister, she added. He nodded once. She was with the med team, right? Yeah, he said. She volunteered, said she wanted to help, said she had to. She smuggled him onto the truck, Ellie said. She didn't tell me, he said, voice lower. I found the note after. She must have written it in the last hour. Ellie reached into her coat, pulled out the folded note, and held it toward him. He didn't take it. "Keep it," he said. She meant it for whoever stayed. They sat in silence again. Charlie didn't move. The fire crackled softly, but not loud enough to break the stillness. Finally, Ellie said, "I'm heading to the ranger post east of here. It's supposed to have radio. That place is 2 days out. Then I better leave before nightfall." "You won't make it." Ellie looked up sharply. "Watch me." The man's voice didn't rise. "It's not about strength. There's a ridge before you get there. Ice is worse this year. And with that sled, you won't cross it alone." Ellie glanced down. Her ribs still ached. Her wrist felt swollen under the wrap. The pain had become background noise. She had trained herself to ignore it. But she couldn't lie. She didn't know if she had 2 more days in her. "You have another idea?" she asked. "I know a path," he said. "But it's not marked. You'd need help." She hesitated. Trust didn't come easy anymore. Especially not in the middle of nowhere with a sick child and a man who spoke in half-truths. But she didn't have options. "What's your name?" she asked. He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Joel." She waited, but he said nothing more. "You were a soldier?" she asked. He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Retired." "Discharged," he said. Ellie didn't ask why. The word was enough. There were only a few reasons someone got discharged. None of them came with a ceremony. She looked at Liam again. He was breathing, but barely. They didn't have time for long decisions. "All right," she said. "We move at first light." Joel nodded. "I'll take the first watch." Ellie didn't argue. She wrapped herself tighter around Liam, used her jacket to block the wind, and closed her eyes for the first time in almost 24 hours. Sleep didn't come easy, but it came. The next morning, Ellie opened her eyes before the sun came up. Her back was stiff, her fingers numb, but Liam was still warm against her chest. That was what mattered. Joel was still sitting by the fire. He hadn't moved all night. His eyes were open, watching the trees. Ellie stood slowly, stretched her arms, tested her shoulder. It still burned, but the pain hadn't spread. That was good. "You sleep at all?" she asked. "No." "You always this friendly?" He glanced at her. "You always this loud?" She gave him a small smile, then turned to check the sled. Charlie stood up, stretched, and shook snow from his fur. He stayed close to Liam, his head resting near the boy's hand. Ellie knelt beside the sled. "Liam," she said softly. "Hey, sweetheart, can you wake up for me?" The boy's eyes fluttered, then opened. Barely. She brushed the hair from his face. "We're moving today. I need you to stay still and warm. All right?" He didn't speak, just nodded once. Ellie kissed his forehead, then turned to Joel. "You lead," she said. "We follow." Joel stood without a word and started toward the edge of the clearing. Ellie pulled the sled behind her. They walked in silence. The trees were thinner here, the trail narrow. Ellie kept her eyes on Joel's back, studying his movement. He was favoring his right leg. A limp, not bad, but enough to slow them if things went wrong. After an hour, Joel spoke without turning around. "Why'd you come out here alone?" "They said no one made it. I didn't believe them. They were probably right." Ellie didn't answer right away. "I had a sister," she said. "She was sick. I was deployed. I missed her last call. By the time I got home, it was over. I told myself I'd never miss the chance again." Joel didn't respond. They kept walking. The snow got deeper. Liam didn't make a sound, but he was breathing. Ellie checked every hour. They stopped once for water and dried food. Joel handed her a strip of jerky, then sat across from her, eyes scanning the trees. "You always carry your guilt like armor?" he asked. Ellie looked at him, surprised. "You don't talk much," she said. "Doesn't mean I don't see." She didn't answer. Then quietly, "Maybe I do." Joel nodded once. "It'll slow you down. I'd rather carry guilt than leave people behind." He looked away. That was the first time she saw something in his face shift. Like maybe, just maybe, he knew exactly what she meant. By mid-afternoon, the snow had started again, light at first, then heavier with every step. Joel's limp slowed them down more than Ellie expected, but he didn't complain. Every so often, he stopped, looked around, then adjusted their path. Ellie watched him closely, not just because she still didn't fully trust him, but because she wanted to understand how he moved. It was like he had done this before. Like every fallen branch or slope in the ground meant something to him. Liam hadn't spoken since morning. His skin looked better, but his eyes were still tired. Ellie kept checking his temperature. Warm but not hot. She wasn't sure if that was a good sign or if she was just fooling herself. Either way, she kept going. If she stopped to think too hard, she'd start to spiral, and they didn't have time for that. They reached the base of the ridge just before the sun started to set. The path ahead was steep, rocky, and mostly covered in snow. Ellie stood still, staring at it. She had no idea how they were supposed to climb it with Liam in the sled. Joel didn't wait. He took off his coat, tied it around his waist, and started up the side. His hands gripped the branches like he knew every inch of the terrain. Ellie shook her head. He wasn't joking, she whispered. Charlie sat beside her, tongue out, panting gently. She looked down at Liam. His eyes were closed again. She crouched beside him and whispered, "We're almost there, buddy. Just hang on a little longer." Then she stood, took the sled rope in both hands, and followed Joel up the ridge. The climb was slow. The sled kept slipping backward every few feet. Ellie used her body to block it, digging her boots into the snow. Her shoulder screamed. Her wrist throbbed. She bit her lip so hard it bled. But she didn't stop. Halfway up, Joel reached down and grabbed the rope, pulling from above while Ellie pushed from below. They didn't speak. There was no need. They both knew what was at stake. By the time they reached the top, the sky was almost dark. Ellie collapsed next to the sled, breathing hard, chest burning. Joel stood still, scanning the tree line ahead. "That's it," he said finally, pointing to a small, dark shape in the distance. "The ranger post. Half a mile. Maybe less." Ellie looked up, eyes wide. She could see the faint outline of a roof just above the trees. Relief washed over her so fast it made her dizzy. They were close. She stood slowly, brushed the snow from her coat, and pulled the sled again. They didn't talk much after that. Just walked. The trees grew tighter. The air got still. Too still. Charlie froze. He stepped ahead of the sled, ears up, body tense. Ellie grabbed the leash. "What is it?" she whispered. Charlie growled low, steady, his eyes fixed ahead. Joel stopped walking. "Something's wrong," he said. Then, out of the silence, crunching snow. From the trees. Slow steps. Someone was coming. Ellie pulled the sled back behind a log. She crouched in front of Liam, her arm around his body. Joel stepped forward slightly, body turned sideways, not threatening, but ready. Then, a voice. "You're not supposed to be here." A figure stepped out of the woods. Thin, wrapped in black, face covered, holding something metal in their hand, not a weapon. A piece of the wreck. Joel stepped between the stranger and Ellie. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady. The figure didn't answer. Then, slowly, they raised their free hand, and Ellie saw what was inside it. Liam's photo. Torn. Weathered. But it was him. The same face. Same eyes. She stood. "Where did you get that?" The figure finally spoke. "I was supposed to find him first." Joel stepped forward. "What are you talking about?" The figure's hand shook slightly. "They were going to pay me to bring him in. Quietly. Before anyone else got here." Ellie felt her heart drop. "What do you mean, bring him in?" The figure turned toward her. "He's not just a kid. He's the only witness left. And people don't want him talking." Ellie moved in front of Liam, her voice low. "You're not taking him." "I don't want to," the figure said. "Not anymore." Ellie narrowed her eyes. "Then why are you here?" The figure stepped back. "To warn you." Then he turned and vanished into the woods. Ellie stood frozen. Joel stepped beside her. "We have to move. Now." They grabbed the sled. No more talking. Just running. The ranger post was still half a mile out. But now they weren't the only ones in the woods. They had made it through the crash. Through the snow. Through sickness. But someone else was coming. And this time it wasn't the cold that was going to kill them. The trees looked the same in every direction. Snow on branches. Shadows between trunks. But something about the way Charlie moved told Ellie they were being watched. The dog kept stopping, turning his head, sniffing the air, then walking again, slow and quiet. Not scared, not loud, but sure. Joel walked ahead of them now, his eyes locked on the path. He hadn't said much since the stranger appeared in the clearing. Neither had Ellie. The words still rang in her head. He's not just a kid. He's the only witness left. She kept glancing back at Liam, wrapped in the sled, cheeks pale, lips slightly parted. His chest still moved up and down, slow but steady. He didn't know what had just happened. Didn't know someone had come for him. Or why. They moved fast now. Joel pushed aside branches. Ellie pulled the sled harder. The ranger post was close. She could almost feel it. Finally, through the trees, a shape. A building. Low, old, faded green wood. One broken window. A rusted door. Joel jogged up first and tried the handle. It opened. He stepped back. Clear. Ellie pulled the sled inside, careful not to bump Liam's head on the frame. She backed in, Charlie beside her, then shut the door behind them and locked it. The inside smelled like dust and oil. A small wood stove sat in the corner. Shelves lined the walls. A map hung half-torn near the window. There was a radio on the desk, but the cord was frayed. Ellie didn't care. They had walls now, a roof, a place to breathe. She laid Liam on the cot in the corner, then checked his pulse. Still there, a little stronger now. She brushed the hair from his forehead, then stood. "We need fire," she said. Joel was already pulling pieces of wood from the bin near the stove. He had it going within minutes. The warmth hit fast and hard. Ellie took off her gloves and held her hands to it, then guided Liam's body closer. She looked at Joel. "You think that guy'll come back?" Joel didn't answer. She stepped closer. "Tell me what you're not saying." Joel looked at the fire. His voice was low. "Anna knew something about the people funding the convoy. She said they were hiding things. Names. Money. She said she had proof." Ellie stared at him. "And you didn't think to mention this?" "I didn't think it mattered," Joel said. "I thought she was just scared, just trying to protect the kid." Ellie turned away, heart racing. She looked at Liam. So small. Just a boy. She could still see the curve of his fingers under the blanket. How he curled slightly on his side like he was protecting himself even in sleep. "She hid something with him," Ellie said. "I know it." Joel nodded slowly. "Probably." Ellie moved to Liam's coat. It was worn, thin, the seams stitched by hand. She checked every fold, every pocket. Then, near the back hem, her fingers felt it. Something small, flat, and hard. She pulled it out. A memory card. She turned it over in her hand, heart pounding. Joel looked at her. "You have a laptop?" "No." "Then we don't know what's on it." Ellie tucked it into her vest. "Doesn't matter. Someone wants it, which means we don't let it go." Joel stood and walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside just enough to see out. "Firelight'll draw them," he said. "I'll take the first watch," Ellie said. "No," Joel said. "You rest. I can handle it." Ellie opened her mouth to argue, but Charlie stood and pressed his nose to her hand. She looked down. He was tired too. So was she. She sat beside Liam on the cot and pulled him closer. Her body curled around his, one arm wrapped gently over his stomach, his head pressed to her chest. Joel pulled up a chair by the door, shotgun resting across his lap, eyes on the trees. And for the first time in 4 days, Ellie let herself fall asleep. Ellie didn't know how long she had been asleep when she opened her eyes again. But the fire had gone low and the room was darker than before. The only light came from the last burning log inside the stove, flickering orange and soft against the walls. She didn't move at first. Liam was still asleep in her arms, his breathing warm against her chest. His body didn't feel as cold as before. That gave her hope. Maybe the medicine had started working. Maybe the rest was helping. She looked across the room. Joel was still in the chair, his back straight, the shotgun across his knees, but his head had started to tilt. Not fully asleep, but close. He didn't notice her watching him. She looked down again at Liam and pulled the blanket higher over his shoulder. The memory card was still tucked inside her vest. She could feel the edge of it against her ribs. Scared her. Not just what it might contain, but what it meant. People had died for it. Anna, the driver, the other medics, whoever that man in the woods worked for, they wanted it badly enough to follow her through a snowstorm. That meant something. Ellie didn't want to think about it yet. She wanted to believe they were safe for now. But part of her didn't believe in safety anymore. She sat up slowly, making sure Liam stayed wrapped tight, then walked over to Joel. He opened his eyes without a word. "I'll take the rest of the watch," she said. "You slept an hour," he replied. She didn't argue. She picked up the extra coat from the floor and pulled it on, then moved to the window. The night outside was still. No wind, no sound, just snow falling like ash. Joel leaned his head back against the wall. "When this is over," he said quietly, "what happens to him?" Ellie kept her eyes on the trees. "I don't know. Family? None that I know of." Joel was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't think Anna expected to survive that trip." Ellie turned to look at him. She wrote the note. She sewed the card into his coat. That wasn't panic. That was preparation. Ellie sat down on the floor by the door. Her body was sore. Her ribs hurt. But the quiet made space for something new, grief. "I wish I'd met her," she said. "She was a pain," Joel said. "Too kind. Too stubborn." "She sounds familiar." He gave the faintest smile. "Yeah, I see that." They didn't speak again for a while. When the sun started to rise, Ellie stood and moved back to the cot. Liam was still sleeping. His face looked calmer. His hands were relaxed now, no longer clenched tight. She kissed the top of his head. Then she heard it. A sound outside. Not loud, not close, but real. Footsteps. Not animals. Too steady, too slow. Joel sat up, alert. Charlie lifted his head, ears forward. Ellie held her breath. Another step. Then a voice. "Don't shoot. I'm coming in." It was the same voice from the woods. Joel stood, shotgun in hand but lowered. Ellie moved to the door, opened it. The man stood there. Same scarf, same eyes. He held up both hands. "I need to talk," he said. "I won't stay, but you need to hear this." Joel didn't move. Ellie nodded once. "Come in." But no tricks. He stepped inside, stood just past the threshold. "The boy," he said, eyes on Liam. "He doesn't know. But that card, it has footage. Names. Documents. Anna was collecting proof for months. She knew someone would come after her. She wanted it to reach someone who could use it. The convoy wasn't just aid. It was cover. They were moving files under supplies. Things they weren't supposed to have." Ellie stepped closer. "Why tell us this now?" "Because," he said, "others are coming. Not like me. Worse. And they don't care who they hurt." Joel spoke. "What's your angle?" "I was paid to find the card," the man said. "Not kill anyone. That was never part of my deal." "You expect us to believe that?" He looked at Ellie. "I expect you to believe a mother died trying to protect him. That should be enough." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a phone. "Satellite. Use it. Call for help. I won't stop you." Ellie didn't move. "You're not coming with us," she said. He nodded. "I'll be gone before nightfall." She took the phone. He turned and left. Joel shut the door behind him. Ellie stared at the device in her hand. "Do you trust it?" Joel asked. "I don't know." But she powered it on. It worked. A single bar of signal. Enough to send a message. She typed quickly. "Emergency. 3 survivors. 1 child. Location. Ranger station north of Clearwater Ridge. Urgent extraction needed. Dangerous threat approaching. She hit send, then turned to Joel. We hold here, she said, until they come. He nodded. She sat beside Liam again and waited. Ellie sat with her back against the cot, her fingers gently resting on Liam's shoulder. She could feel the rise and fall of his chest through the layers. Still steady, still with her. She closed her eyes for just a second, not sleeping, just trying to breathe without shaking. Her heart hadn't slowed since the man left. The satellite phone sat on the desk beside her, its small screen still glowing. Message sent. No reply yet. Joel stood by the window, peering out every few minutes. He hadn't spoken since the man left, but his hands were tighter on the shotgun now, his body stiff, like he was bracing for something. Charlie didn't sit. He paced, back and forth between Ellie and the door. His paws moved silently over the floorboards, his ears twitching with every sound outside. The dog wasn't barking, but that made Ellie more nervous. He barked when it was noise. He went quiet when it was danger. The wind had picked up again. She could hear it through the cracks in the roof, low and restless, like something breathing just above them. She stood. Any movement? Joel shook his head once. I don't trust him, Ellie said. Joel didn't look at her. Me neither. She walked over to the radio on the table. Broken. Cord frayed near the base. She tried to fix it earlier with the tape from her kit, but it was too far gone. All they had now was the phone. If that died, there was nothing. She checked the battery. 34%. She sat back down. Joel glanced at her. How's the kid? Still sleeping. Any fever? No. Just tired. Joel walked over and crouched beside the cot. He looked at Liam's face for a long time. Then he said something Ellie didn't expect. I should have gone with her. Ellie looked up. He didn't move. I told Anna it was too risky. Told her to stay out of it. She said she had to. That people like her don't get to wait for others to fix things. Ellie didn't speak. He stood slowly. She was right. Ellie stood too. You were trying to protect her. Joel shook his head. I was trying to protect myself. I didn't want to watch someone else die. Ellie walked to the stove, fed it the last of the wood. The fire caught slowly, light filling the room again. She looked over her shoulder. Then don't waste the second chance. Joel looked at her. His voice was quieter now. You think we'll make it out? Ellie didn't answer right away. She turned to Liam again. I don't know, but I'm not going to stop trying. That's when the phone buzzed. Both of them turned at once. One new message. Ellie picked it up. Extraction team en route. ETA 18 hours. Hold position. Secure subject. Do not engage. She stared at the last line. Do not engage. Her stomach dropped. Joel stepped behind her. Read the message over her shoulder. They know, he said. Ellie looked at him. They know what? That he's not just a kid. She lowered the phone slowly. They're not coming to save us. They're coming for the card. Joel nodded. And if we hand it over, they leave us here. Ellie looked at Liam. He stirred slightly in his sleep, his head shifting under the blanket. She whispered, Then we don't hand it over. Joel sat down at the desk. We'll need to move before they get here. There's nowhere else to go. Then we dig in. Ellie felt her breath catch in her throat. She had been in standoffs before. Siege lines. Crossfire. But this felt different. This time she had someone to protect who couldn't run. Who didn't understand the danger. Who hadn't asked for any of this. She crossed the room. Sat beside Liam again. Pulled the blanket higher. She felt his hands slip into hers while he slept. Her chest tightened. Joel, she said quietly. Yeah. If I don't make it, you will. If I don't, she said again, firmer. You get him out. Joel turned, looked her in the eye. Deal. Ellie sat in silence for a long time after Joel agreed. The weight of that one word, deal, sat heavy in her chest. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just real. She looked at Liam again, his face still peaceful, His fingers wrapped around hers like he knew more than he could say. The heat from the stove made the room feel safer than it should have. Outside, the storm was picking up again, pushing wine through the cracks in the walls, whispering through the trees, but inside the ranger station, for now it was still. Joel got up and walked toward the shelves. He started moving things, carefully, not wasting energy, just quiet, steady hands searching. He opened an old drawer and pulled out a set of folded papers. Maps. Ellie watched him spread one across the desk, flattening it with his palm. His eyes moved across it like he was tracing something he'd memorized long ago. "You know another way out?" she asked softly. "There's a dry riverbed," he said. "Runs southeast. It's shallow now, covered in snow but walkable. If we leave by morning, we could hit the highway in 2 days. Too open." He nodded. "If they're watching from the air, we'll be seen." Ellie stood, walked over, and studied the map beside him. "There's a ridge here," she said, pointing. "Could give us cover." Joel looked at her hand. "It's rough. I've done rough." He gave a small nod. "Then we go together." Ellie folded the map and tucked it into her coat. "We go at first light, with or without them knowing." Joel looked toward the window. "They'll know," Ellie whispered. "Then we make it hard for them to follow." They worked quietly through the evening. Joel covered the windows with old blankets. Ellie packed her kit tight. She wrapped Liam's blanket tighter, tucked supplies beneath the sled. Charlie lay by the door again, but this time his tail didn't wag. He was still, watching. At some point, Liam woke. Ellie felt his hand squeeze hers lightly. She looked down and met his eyes. They were open fully now. Tired, yes, but present. "Hey," she said softly. He blinked. She knelt closer. "How do you feel?" He took a breath, swallowed. "Warm," he whispered. Ellie smiled, even though tears hid her eyes. "You scared me," she said. "Thought I'd lost you." His eyes moved to the stove, then the room, then to Joel. "Who's that?" "That's Joel. He helped us find this place." Liam nodded slowly. Then after a few seconds, "Is my mom coming?" Ellie's throat closed. She looked at Joel, then back at Liam. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "She's not." Liam didn't cry. He looked down at his blanket, then at his hand in hers. "She wrote me a letter," he whispered. Ellie nodded. "I have it. It's safe." He looked up at her again. "Can I hear it?" She swallowed, pulled it from her coat, unfolded it carefully, and began to read. "If anyone finds him, his name is Liam. Please keep him warm. I'm sorry. I love you, baby." That was it. Short, simple. But Ellie's voice broke at the end. She wiped her cheek and looked at him. He closed his eyes. "I knew she wouldn't make it," he said softly. Ellie touched his hair. "She did everything to protect you." He nodded. "She told me," he whispered. "Before the crash, she told me to be brave." "You have been," Ellie said. "You've been so brave." He didn't say anything else. He just held her hand. That night, no one really slept. Ellie lay next to Liam, one arm around him, listening to the fire breathe in the stove and to every creak outside the walls. She could feel Joel moving now and then by the door, checking the map, looking out the window. Charlie hadn't closed his eyes once. Every time she looked at him, he was staring at the door. Around 3 in the morning, Liam stirred. "Ellie?" "Yeah." "Are they coming?" Ellie hesitated. "Yes," she said. "But we'll be gone before they get here." "Will they be mad?" Ellie looked at him. His eyes were wide, but calm. He wasn't scared the way other kids would be. Maybe it was because of everything he had already seen. Maybe he didn't know how scared he was supposed to be. "No," she said softly. "They'll be too slow." He nodded and closed his eyes again. Ellie kissed his forehead. At first light, they moved fast. Joel packed only what they needed. Water, dried food, a spare blanket. Ellie rolled Liam back into the sled, layered in the thickest coat they had, wrapped in every ounce of warmth they could find. The memory card was still hidden against Ellie's skin. She checked the phone one last time. No new messages. still at 30%. That was enough. They left the ranger station just after sunrise. The snow had stopped. The trail Joel took wasn't a trail at all. Just a gap between trees that sloped slowly downhill. Every few minutes they stopped and listened. Birds. Branches. Nothing else. Charlie stayed close. Ellie pulled the sled behind her. Joel walked ahead. After an hour, the woods opened slightly, and Joel stopped. He turned to Ellie. They'll start tracking soon. We need to leave something behind. Ellie looked around. Like what? He pointed to a narrow path that bent hard around a boulder. That way leads to a dead end. If they think we took it. Ellie looked at Liam. She didn't like the idea of splitting. Joel seemed to read her mind. Just a trail. Nothing else. Ellie nodded. They moved to the bend, dragged the sled across it once, leaving marks. Joel broke a branch, laid it on the trail like they had pushed through it. Then they doubled back quietly and veered off the other way. It wasn't much, but it was something. They walked for another hour before they heard it. A helicopter. Low. Fast. Ellie dropped to her knees and pulled the sled under a rock ledge. Joel crouched behind a tree. The sound grew louder, passed overhead, then faded. They waited, still, breathing shallow. Liam didn't speak. Charlie didn't move. Ellie counted to 30 in her head before standing again. They kept walking. They reached the riverbed just after midday. It looked like a scar across the land, wide, white, and silent. The trees pulled back here, leaving them exposed for at least a mile. Joel studied the sky. Nothing yet. Ellie nodded. Let's not wait for it. They moved fast. The sled dragged easier on the flat snow. Liam stayed quiet. Ellie kept her eyes on the tree line. Halfway across, Charlie stopped. His body went still. His ears turned. He looked behind them. Joel saw it too. He raised his hand. They listened. Then a voice. Far behind them. Stop! Ellie turned. A man stepped out of the trees. Dressed in black. Not the same as the stranger. This one held a rifle. Another followed him. Then a third. 3 men. Moving fast. Closing the gap. Joel grabbed Ellie's arm. Go! She pulled the sled harder. Joel ran beside her. The men shouted again. Louder. Stop! Drop the sled. Ellie didn't answer. Didn't stop. Charlie barked once. Sharp. Angry. Then one of the men raised his weapon. A shot cracked the air. Snow burst near Ellie's feet. She didn't scream. She ran. Joel turned and fired once, the only shot he had, then kept running. Ellie pushed harder, dragging the sled through thicker snow. Liam curled tighter inside, face hidden. Charlie ran behind them, barking now without stopping. The edge of the riverbed was close. They just had to reach the trees. Then, a sharp pain cut through Ellie's side. She stumbled, fell to one knee. Joel grabbed the sled rope and pulled. Ellie forced herself up, kept moving. Blood on her coat now. Didn't matter. Couldn't stop. They hit the trees, ducked behind a fallen log. Joel looked at her. You hit. Ellie nodded. Sighed. He checked it quickly. Grazed. You'll live. She smiled, even though it hurt. Great. Liam looked up from the sled. Are we okay? Ellie touched his hand. We're together. Joel reloaded. Only 1 round left. Ellie checked the memory card in her vest. Still there. She met Joel's eyes. If we give it to them, they'll kill us anyway. Ellie nodded. Then we don't give it. She pulled Liam close. Joel looked at the trees. They'll find us in minutes. Ellie whispered. Then we make them earn it. Joel pressed his back to the tree, shotgun raised. His eyes locked on the line of brush where the men had disappeared. Ellie crouched behind the log, her arm wrapped around Liam. Her other hand pressed against the blood soaking her coat. It hurt, but not enough to stop her. She looked down at the boy in her arms. His face was pale but calm. He wasn't crying, just watching her, trusting her. They're going to try and take me, he whispered. Ellie nodded once. They won't. Liam looked away. You should give them what they want. Ellie touched his face. They don't get to win. Not this time. Joel crouched beside them. We split, he said. I'll pull them north. You take the kid and go east. Stay low. Stay quiet. Ellie shook her head. No. Joel looked her in the eye. Ellie, they don't care about me. They care about that card. And the boy. Ellie gritted her teeth. I'm not losing anyone else. Joel pulled something from his pocket. A small folded paper. Anna gave me this, he said. Before she left. Ellie took it with shaking hands. It was a photo. Anna and Liam. Standing together. Smiling. In front of a little house with peeling paint. Joel's voice cracked. She asked me to keep him safe if anything happened. I told her I would. He looked at Liam. I never got the chance. Ellie looked between the photo and the boy. Then at Joel. You're not doing this alone. Joel smiled softly. I already am. Then he stood. And ran. No warning. No countdown. Just turned and bolted through the trees. Shouting. Yelling loud enough to shake the snow from the branches. Hey! Over here. You want the card? Come get it. Gunfire followed. 3 shots. Then more. Ellie didn't wait. She wrapped Liam tighter in the blanket. Whispered in his ear. Hold on, baby. Just hold on. And pulled the sled into the trees. Charlie stayed by her side. Silent now, focused. The forest was thick. She moved fast, stumbling twice, catching herself, dragging the sled over roots and between rocks. She didn't look back. Didn't think. Just moved. Then, a voice behind her. Stop! She turned. One of the men stood 10 feet away. Gun raised. Ice cold. She stepped in front of Liam. He stepped closer. Give me the card. Ellie said nothing. He raised the gun higher. I don't want to shoot you. Ellie reached into her vest. Pulled out the memory card. Held it up. Here, she said. The man stepped closer. Closer. Then Ellie threw the card behind her. Deep into the woods. He flinched. Turned his head. And in that half-second, Charlie lunged. The dog hit him hard. Teeth locking onto his arm. The gun fired once wild into the air. Ellie grabbed Liam and ran. Charlie held on. The man screamed, trying to throw him off. Another shot. Then silence. Charlie limped back to her seconds later. Bleeding, but alive. Ellie collapsed behind a fallen tree, pulled Liam into her lap, and cried. Not loud. Just enough to feel it. Enough to know they were still here. They waited. For hours. No more footsteps. No more voices. Just snow. Just quiet. By nightfall, a chopper came. But not the same one. This time, the door opened. And a woman leaned out. Uniform. Badge. Relief on her face. We got your signal, she said. Are you Ellie Hart? Ellie nodded. She didn't have the strength to speak. The woman jumped down. Wrapped a blanket around her. Carried Liam into the chopper. Helped Ellie in after him. Charlie climbed in last, his side still bleeding. They lifted into the sky. Ellie looked down one last time. At the trees. At the river. At the place where it all ended. Then Liam reached for her hand. She took it. And held on. 6 weeks later, Ellie stood outside a foster home in Colorado. The door opened. Liam ran out, wearing a new coat, his hair brushed, his smile bright. Charlie barked once and ran to him. Liam hugged the dog tight, then looked up at Ellie. You came back. She smiled. Always. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note. His mother's. Wanna hear it again? Ellie knelt in the snow, pulled him close. Yeah, she whispered. Let's hear it. And together they read it. One more time. Thank you to my amazing family for staying with me until the end of this story. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed this journey, I just know you'll love what comes next. I've prepared something even more exciting and surprising that I can't wait to share with you. Just click on the end card appearing on your screen right now to watch the next one.